Howdy, people. So this video is called "Why Democrats Need to Talk About Race and Trans Issues and How to Do It." So the reason that you guys, Dems, liberals, I wouldn't say leftists, because if we go by what all these terms mean, if you're a leftist, that means you're sort of like far left. So I won't include leftists in this. I'm mostly talking about more moderate liberals and general Democrats who aren't out and out activists. Um, you guys need to talk about race issues and trans issues, and here's the reason why. So normally I want to do these videos. I used to want to make these videos in a way where I was sort of talking to everyone at once. Republicans, liberals, Democrats, activists. But Republicans, you guys have all the power right now. So I'm going to talk to my Democrat friends and help them get organized because I want them to win, frankly. No offense to you guys, but I'm not, Trump is, I'm not a big fan of Trump, and I'm not a big fan of what they're doing. And, lots of people are theorizing about what they might do, and if they do some of those things that are being theorized about and maybe potentially already starting to happen, this country is going to be in for a big pile of dookie. So, not a big fan of these guys. So I'm going to help organize my Democrat friends for a second. So Democrats, moderates, liberals, people who aren't part of the MAGA sphere and people who aren't activists. That's why you need to talk about trans stuff and race stuff. The reason is because the right wing in this country has a gigantic, 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 gigantic propaganda machine. And the things that it is talking about are a lot of race stuff and a lot of trans stuff. That's what they've decided to sort of focus on because it gets people up in arms. It makes people angry. It's sort of easy. It's accessible. Um, Whites are under attack. The trans want to trans your kids. The gays want to steal your children and read to them in funny, funky outfits with makeup on. The men want to dress like women and read your children's storybooks, all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. That's what the right wing propaganda machine is pushing out all the freaking time. Uh, and you have to address it. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. There are ways to do this intelligently that don't throw out sort of even the far left's principles. I would argue they'd probably disagree with me, half of them, but my goal is to get half of the activists on my side on some of the things I'm going to say in another video. Here, I'm just giving the reasons why this is so important. The right wing is talking about race stuff. It's talking about trans stuff. And if you go silent on that, you will continue to allow them to brand you with it. I was talking to my mom. She listens to a lot of NPR. She's quite left, but she's not radical. But even she was kind of like, I don't think that you should talk about trans issues because it's such a small number of the public. It's such a small number of people. Why is there so much? And I said, well, yeah, but who's really talking about trans people so much? It's not the left. The left is afraid to talk about trans people at this point. It's the right. The right wing is talking about trans people over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So unless you start going into those spaces and taking an actual stance on trans people, which the left has failed to do, you either have the activist stance, which most people, I hate to tell you this, activists and allies and such, most people are not comfortable with the farthest left ideas that have come out about trans people. And I think that there's a way to moderate some of it that still respects trans people, but that doesn't inherently make it inaccessible to people who aren't activists or allies or trans themselves. You can approach this stuff in a way that doesn't inherently, antagonize people who aren't already in this, belief system, this way of thinking about the world. And the Democrats haven't done that work, and that's why people don't trust them. Because and so you have to address this stuff, or the right wing is going to keep using it against you. And it's the same thing with race. You need to find a way to assert what you believe about race that doesn't throw out your basic principles about it, but that also isn't inherently antagonizing. And that's even too far, because that's giving too much credit to the right wing. The right wing propaganda machine will find a way to be antagonized about any of this. But you need to have done the thinking. And actually, I don't even know that that's true. If you can find a moderate position on some of this stuff, I'm not going to give them. They may. It depends on how formidable your position is, and I think that there are formidable positions that are actually tough to fight against. So I'm going to give those out in in another couple videos. I'm going to do one about race and one or two about trans people. But the important thing to understand that I'm trying to get across here is that you actually have to do it. You can't just back away from this stuff, because you'll lose a significant chunk of the left if you just go silent about black people or trans people. You can't, it's been in some ways, either tacitly or explicitly, a huge part of your platform for so long. If you back away from that stuff and just go totally silent and try and let time ebb at people's perception of its influence on your party, you're falling into the stereotype of Democrats being weak and lily-livered and not actually believing anything they say. So you actually have to come out with an affirmative position on these things, and you can't shy away. Now, that there's a separate thing here with the economy and blah 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 blah. I'm going to assert something that I think is true. You could have won this last election, 2024, with Kamala, if you had taken a stance on cultural things and actually addressed them. And I don't mean just been like, well, I believe trans women are women or something. Like, that's not what I'm talking about at all. And you'll see that in the couple videos I make about this. But if you had addressed cultural stuff, you probably would have won. No matter whether your economics was Bidenomics or Kamalanomics or whatever kind of nomics you want to do, the culture stuff is killing you across the board, and you need to take affirmative positions on it. And I have some tried and true tested positions with Republicans and conservatives that I know work. So I'm going to share those in another couple videos, and I hope you guys check them out. But this is really essential. I'm reading it today about how Democrat donors are pulling their funds from Democrat, from the party, because they don't see any action. They don't see any forward thinking. They don't see plans about how to move the party forward and make it successful going forward. And I think that there are ways to do it, and I have some of them. So I'm going to start sharing. I've been holding off on a lot of this stuff for a long time. I've literally had some of these. I think they're nuggets. I think they're useful, but I've been holding on to them for a long, 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 long time. Because in some ways, I don't know. It's tough imagining putting yourself out there on these sort of sensitive issues. But I think there's a way to do it, and I actually think it's absolutely essential that Democrats do it. If you guys want to have any hope of pulling anything back going forward, and it's not just about you could probably, if you did come out with a strong economic stance in a populist sort of way that was going to meaningfully address a lot of the issues that people think exist economically in this country, you might be able to win with that without doing anything on the culture stuff. But I think that you're always going to be hurt by this culture stuff until you settle on something about it. And I think, again, there's a way to do that that's useful and effective. So check those videos out. Once I make them, I'll put them in the description. Yeah, have a good one. We're going to try and build something a little better and smarter